Good morning, church. It's wonderful to see all of you this morning. It's wonderful to hear the buzzing that's going on and the camaraderie. It's good news. We're going to start with a video song this morning, Yonder Come Day. The sun is arising in your soul today. I hope that today will bring you joy, faith, hope, and love, for 'tis the season. I'm Michelle Augustine. I am your social justice team leader. And I just briefly want to mention, you've got some great announcements, a lot of good things going on this week. And so today, if you're interested, we will be serving a hot meal to the homeless through Helping Hands of Georgetown at the Georgetown parking lot today at 4 o'clock. If you'd like to come and help distribute pizza and some snacks, feel free to join us. Wear your yellow shirts. That would be great. Holiday party next week and pageant. You don't want to miss next Sunday. It's going to be a great time for us to be together and celebrating this season. I want to mention that there's a point-in-time count of the homeless, unsheltered people in Williamson County. If you'd like to be a part of that in January, send an email of your interest, and we'll keep you posted on that. And I think that's about it. So do be sure to check your messenger. It's a great source of information for you. And with that, let us begin our service.
Welcome. Whether you are participating live or online, we are glad you have joined us at San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Susan Patterson. Forgot my name tag, but I have been attending here for about a year and a half since I first moved to Georgetown from North Carolina. I became a Unitarian back in about 5 years ago when I lived in Orlando. Been searching for a spiritual home all my life, and I realized that I have more questions than answers. But this is the place to ask the questions. San Gabriel recognizes that we are situated on the land of the Tonkawa. Just this past week, there was a walk through San Gabriel Park with a local historian who told us a lot about the native history of the area, and she's going to be staging the walk again, she said, on a weekend soon, so we'll keep you posted. It was definitely worthwhile. They served buffalo tacos and fry bread at the end, and it was wonderful. So I hope you'll keep an eye out for the next event. San Gabriel is a congregation that welcomes all, promotes personal and spiritual growth, and works for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. This Sunday, we are focusing our attention on the challenge of living out our values and compassion and justice that stand at the heart of our tradition. And some of these challenges include assisting local and state agencies who work with asylum seekers and immigrants. And we will now light our chalice. We light this chalice today in gratitude for the gift of today, for the blessings of life, and for our community of nurture and compassion. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith in life-giving power of love, forgiveness, and hope. May the light shining from this flame draw us together and merge our hearts, minds, and souls in one faith, and calling us together as a congregation in this community of Georgetown. Our opening song is in the Teal Hymn Book, number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. As we gather in this sacred place and feel the power of each other's faith, let us sing together. You can follow along using the Teal hymnal, or the words will be projected. This congregation has a shared affirmation that unites us in a common mission and purpose. I invite you to join us in reading the affirmation, and the words will be projected. The doctrine of this church is love. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. And now we'll have Karina and the Wonder Box.
I love guessing with you all, even though I kind of know what's in here. Do you want to make some guesses and help figure out what might be inside this Wonder Box? It's not giving us... The only hint we're getting is that it's not making noise. Sponges, love it. What was it? Feathers, could be feathers, something lightweight. It's definitely not heavy. Leaves, that would be lovely. It is something seasonal in a way. We've got, can you tell what type of butterfly it is? Our monarch butterfly. Our habitat team has certainly created an environment to help monarchs as they migrate through Texas. And perhaps you've seen some of those pictures that have been in the messenger. They come through Texas on their way to Mexico in the fall, and they are often used as a symbol for immigrant rights, which is what we will be learning about more today in our service. So in the story today, perhaps you, that I'm about to share with you, maybe you can spot some monarchs in there as well.
Dreamers, written and illustrated by Yuyi Morales. Published by Neil Porter Books. I dreamed of you, then you appeared. Together we became amor, love, amor. Resplendent life, you and I. One day we bundled gifts in our backpack and crossed a bridge, outstretched like the universe. Adios, corazón. And when we made it to the other side, thirsty, in awe, unable to go back, we became immigrants. Migrantes, you and I. The sky and the land welcomed us in words unlike those of our ancestors. What? Speak English. Say something. Give thanks. There were so many things we didn't know. Unable to understand and afraid to speak. We made lots of mistakes. You and I became caminantes. Thousands and thousands of steps we took around this land until the day we found a place we had never seen before. Suspicious, improbable, unbelievable, surprising, unimaginable. Where we didn't need to speak, we only needed to trust. And we did. Books became our language. Books became our home. Books became our lives. We learned to read, to speak, to write, and to make our voices heard. Someday we will become something we haven't even yet imagined. But right now, we are stories. We are two languages. We are lucha. We are resilience. We are hope. We are dreamers, soñadores of the world. We are love, amor, love. The end.
So I hope you spotted some monarchs in there. That book, I have a copy of it at the back. I checked it out of the library as fitting, and it is not in the fiction section. It is in the biographical section because this is a true story from the author. And so if you'd like to learn more details about their immigration to our country, you're welcome to learn some more about that. Recently, I had shared this book before, and a couple years ago. And at that time, I saw a t-shirt that said, "Every border implies the violence of its maintenance." And I looked up that quote, and it is attributed to Aisha Siddiqui, a writer and trend forecaster. Borders are expected to provide security, but do they instead foster the opposite? There's so much to think about there. And I know that I am eager to move beyond borders and instead focus on people. We have so much more alike than not, no matter where we are from. And as you use, we hold up the right to migrate as a human right. So I have some wonderful monarch crafts at the back, and like I said, if you want to come learn more about the author, I'll have that book for you.
Nobody's taller than me. We take an offering each week to sustain this space we call home and to support the work of our fellowship. As the ushers collect the offering, please know how grateful San Gabriel is for the giving of your time, your talents, and your financial support. Today is a Share the Plate Sunday, which means the dollars and coins you put in the basket or any checks you put in that are marked social justice will be used by the social justice team to donate to Immigration Legal Services in Georgetown, which we'll learn more about later, and to an agency in Brownville, Texas, who crosses the border to provide food, water, and clothing to the asylum seekers encamped at Matamoros, Mexico. And the offer will be now gratefully received, and we thank you. The music today, played by Jackie, is Profecia Pueblo Mío, Prophecy, O My People. The English translation of this Spanish song will be projected, and you'll hear the melody written by Rosa Martha Arate Marcias.
Thank you, thank you. Every time we have a social justice Sunday, Michelle gets desperate and asks me to do a little homily or something around the theme of the day. And she knows I work cheap. So here I am again. Before we get to what little reflection I have to share with you this morning about immigration, this is a time in the service where we kind of share together the joys that we have in our life or the blessings that we all appreciate and give thanks for, as well as expressing together those deep needs, those longings, those prayers for the places in our life that are broken, that are empty, or that cry out in need. So this is your time this morning to share with all of us here what's on your hearts and minds this day that brought you here. So we have a microphone. I'm going to give this to you. So then I'm not operating.
I don't either.
It's on. It's on.
It's on. collect these. Raise your hand, please, if you have something to share this morning, and Susan will bring you a microphone so everyone can hear.
So many of you have asked, and I said I would share because I'm sporting this wonderful little ankle boot. Moral of the story is watch where you're putting your feet. I was helping Rob carry a piece of furniture and managed to get my foot half on the sidewalk and half on a lawn that was lower, and the rest is history. There is a blessing inside of this, though. Usually this time of year, I'm running around like a crazy person trying to make gifts and buy gifts and whatever, and I just get to sit at my computer and look at Amazon. Not usually my way I approach things, but so it is.
We pray your ankle heals well. Others.
Good morning, my name's Michelle. Sometimes I get a little depressed, a little down when we're fighting our government officials for justice issues. We've done a lot of postcard writing, letter writing, right, trying to contact our state legislators. Today, I'm joyful. 2 reasons. School vouchers has not yet passed. So all your hard work, whether you wrote, called, prayed, whatever. Secondly, I just saw an announcement that the courts have once again told Governor Abbott he must remove the buoys with the concertina wire out of the river. So once again, we must remain faithful and support each other in those efforts. Another joy I would like to share, it's a joy of appreciation to our board, our San Gabriel board. I see how hard they're working, and they're faced with the challenge again of finding a pastor, a minister for us. So do keep them in your thoughts and prayers and show them loving concern.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Quiet group today.
Pardon? Yes. That's next week, I think. Where's Frank? Where's Frank? Oh, he's over here. Frank moves around. I saw him earlier over here.
I'd like to share about the celebration of life we had for my son yesterday. It was at the River of Life Church in Austin. It was very well attended. The program was very good. A number of our members got to attend, and I appreciated y'all being there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. We continue to hold you in our thoughts and prayers in the midst of all of that grief and loss. Anyone else? Okay. Something a little unusual. I found over in our fellowship house a series of booklets called the Unitarian Universalist Christian. Now notice the date, 2000, 23 years ago this was written. And I flipped through here and I found a number of prayers. I guess that's when Unitarians used to pray 23 years ago. But I wanted to share one of those with you today. This is Immigration Sunday, where we're talking about people living like us on inhabited lands that other people had before us. And this one is called a Native American prayer, and it says, "Divine Spirit, we summon you." So whether you pray or meditate or whatever, I invite you to listen to this summons from this Native American. Great Spirit, who dwells in every object, every person, every place, we summon you from the far places into our present awareness. God of the divine Spirit, who gives wings to the waters of the air and rolls out with the snowstorms, covering the earth with silver carpets, temper us with toughness to withstand the biting blizzards of our lives. Divine Spirit of the East and of the sun's red rising, brace us for neither neglect our gifts or to lose in laziness the hopes that we have for our living. God of the divine South, whose warm breath of compassion dissolves our fears and meets our hatreds, teach us that we are not truly strong unless we are kind. Divine Spirit of the West and of the sunset, bless us with the knowledge of the freedom which follows the well-disciplined life. Divine Spirit of the earth beneath our feet, sorter and store of unreckoned resources, we would give thanks increasingly for all the great bounties we enjoy. Divine Spirit within, may we be aware of the goodness of the gift of life and be worthy of its priceless privileges. Let those who resonate with this say, Amen. Thank you. As all of you know, I suspect, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, one of the most contentious political issues today revolves around immigration and maintaining our nation's national borders. Of course, this issue is not limited just to the United States of America. European countries are struggling with that. Australia is struggling with these kinds of issues when they find people from the African continent, the Middle East, Ukraine, Central and South America, China, and other parts of the world who are leaving their native homeland and wanting to come to places where there's more hope, more opportunity, less violence, more freedom. Migration and asylum seeking, it seems to be an age-old issue, of course, nothing new, and it still continues to challenge many of our political, moral, cultural, and economic values as a nation. And I hope you realize how we view immigration issues often depends on our national self-interest on one hand and the empathy that we have for those fleeing their homeland because of the circumstances that they face. To illustrate this particular point, I want to read to you this morning what I think of as an immigration story. And I want to ask what values you hear being raised in this particular story. It's an old immigration story. And it asks us to think about these things, the values that it raises. This particular old ancient immigration story comes from the Bible in the New Testament Gospel of Matthew, in the telling of the story of the birth of Jesus. During Christmas time, the story is often remembered in churches around the world. And here's what it says. After the wise men had left Bethlehem in their journey to see the Christ child, an angel of the Lord came to Joseph, the husband of Mary and the father of Jesus, in a dream. And the angel said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod, the Roman ruler who is controlling this land, is about to search for this child to kill him. And Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and traveled to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod came. And this was to fulfill what was spoken by God through the prophet, out of Egypt I have called my son. This old story seems, I think, once again to be played out right now, what's going on in this strip of land called Gaza, where people are trying to flee the destruction of war and bloodshed. The idea of national and cultural and religious and tribal boundaries are as old as these biblical stories reflect. The Jewish Bible, or what we call today the Old Testament, contains numerous references to borders, and interestingly, as being divinely given and instituted these boundaries. Deuteronomy 32:8 says, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the numbers and the sons of God. Ezekiel, the prophet, goes on and says about these promised land borders that the Israelites were hoping for. And Numbers 2 describe the borders of the Lord established to each tribe within Israel. And Deuteronomy is the law of the people, commands that against moving a neighboring tribe's boundary, even the marker of where they are to live in this inherited promised land. Yet, despite all this strict notions about boundaries, where people are to live, the people of ancient Israel also maintained a moral code that they thought their God had given them to respect and protect those who migrated into their land, as reflected in Leviticus. It says, when a stranger sojourns with you into your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a native among you, and you shall love them as yourself. For you are strangers once in the land of Egypt. Similarly, Exodus 22, you shall not wrong a sojourner or oppress them, for you, remember, were yourselves sojourners once in Egypt. You get the spirit of this? Remember who you once were. Remember where you came from. So here in our own time and place, it begs the question, what moral values, maybe what memory, do we still retain to inform our views about immigrants and asylum seekers wanting to come to our nation? Many of us know from our own family histories and heritage that we ourselves once were immigrants from somewhere else who arrived here on this North American continent, searching for some kind of freedom, some kind of opportunity to get out from underneath oppressive social and cultural bondage of some sort. Some of us realize that our ancestors were even brought here in chains against their will. And a few of us may even look at immigration through the eyes of these Native Americans who wondered about what these people from other worlds would bring with them. For years, I had on my church office door a little cartoon that kind of spoke to this issue for me. It depicted two Native Americans standing on some rocks on the shore, presumably Massachusetts, looking out into the bay, and there's this ship with the name Mayflower on it. And one of the Native Americans turns to the other and says, "I wonder if they have their green cards." How we remember our history often shapes our views on issues like immigration and asylum seeking. And immigration honestly seems to raise these age-old questions about claims to land ownership. In the biblical times, Israel was a motley, nomadic, religious minority who believed their God had led them to some promised land. But there were already people there. It was filled with those strange names, Canaanites, Edomites. They were already there. It wasn't a vacant piece of land. Now, 3,000 years later, after being evicted from the Arab world for eons, Israel now is back, claiming again this promised land and wanting to evict the Arabs. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin is now waging a tragic and criminal war against Ukraine with the intention of doing what? Reclaiming old land that was once part of Russia. Earlier this year, I read that the LA County in California agreed to pay $20 million for a valuable beachfront piece of land that was seized from a black family in 1924. Michelle and I recently watched a movie about the white connivers in the 1930s in Oklahoma who were murdering Osage Indians to take their oil-rich land. I just read most recently a UUA social justice publication about our UU practices of acknowledging that we are living on lands once inhabited by Native Americans, which said plainly that simply acknowledging that is not enough. That we must find ways to return some portion of these lands to Native tribes through public reparation plans and taxation policies. Do you see why immigration problems are so difficult for us to address in any just and equitable way? So much history is gone, come and gone. I want to submit to you this morning that there is one key factor in how we navigate through all of these immigration and asylum issues today, and that is our ability to see other people as we like to see ourselves. That their needs are as important as our needs. Their hopes and dreams are as important as our hopes and dreams. The word I'd call it is empathy. What does it take to develop that kind of empathy? So when you think of immigrants today, what comes to mind for you? What picture do you have in your mind when you hear someone talk about immigrants or asylum seekers? Is the picture in your mind primarily Spanish-speaking people with Spanish surnames? Is that what comes to mind for you? Or do you think of people, whether they're black or brown, trying to arrive on the shores, whether it's Florida or Italy, with children in tow, with nothing but a backpack? What comes to mind for you when you think about immigrants? Are they Chinese graduate students studying in universities here in science and technology? Or do you think of Ukrainians or Middle Easterners trying to escape the violence of their war-torn countries? What comes to your mind? Well, if you want to work on your empathy, I want to add a few notable immigrants for you to add to your immigrant profile that you carry around in your mind. Here's a couple. Former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. Movie star Bruce Willis. Composer Irving Berlin. Sierra Club environmentalist John Muir. Industrialist businessman Andrew Carnegie, movie star Audrey Hepburn, and even in his memory of death this week, Henry Kissinger, diplomat. There's a laundry list of those names. I hope you have some of those names in your profile when you think about immigrants. And if you really want to understand, I believe, what drives most immigration policies and issues, I would refer to you to a little short story written by the Southern author Flannery O'Connor back in the 1950s. She entitled it The Displaced Person. The Displaced Person. She captures, I believe, the dynamics of immigration issues that have been a part of our nation's history all along, but continue to trouble us. I think the short story is worth the read for those of us who consider ourselves to be native-born Americans. You might even find yourself somewhere in that story. As we think about this movement of people across the earth today, we're going to sing a closing hymn. Cuando el pobre, when the poor. John Walker is here to sing it in Spanish, the first verse, so you'll hear the tune and know what it's about. And then we're going to sing the other verses in English. I think it's 1027 in your little teal hymnal. If you would, we're going to listen to John first, and then when he finishes, we'll stand and sing the two verses together. Thank you, John. 1027.
Cuando el pobre nada tiene y aún reparte, cuando alguien pasa sed y agua no está, cuando el débil a su hermano fortalece, va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar. Va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar. Please rise in body or spirit and sing together the first two verses in English. When the poor ones who have nothing still are giving, when the thirsty pass the cup, water to share, when the wounded offer others strength and healing, we see God here by our side, walking our way. We see God here by our side, walking our way. When compassion gives the suffering consolation, when expecting brings to birth hope that was lost, when we choose love, not the hatred all around us, we see God here by our side, walking our way. We see God here by our side, walking our way.
Gotta find my place here, excuse me. People leave the cars. Just a minute. We conclude our service today with the dimming of the light of our chalice. May the light that entered our hearts and our minds through this community of faith and service go with us until we gather again in the spirit of love and peace.
Thank you, Susan, Jackie, and Lou. With that, we're going to transition to our chat session, so I invite our guests to come on up. We've got Mike, Irma, and Vanessa, and I'll take the chair over by the window. You good? Oh, yeah, we need that. Thank you. Thank you very much. You on, guys? Need the microphone, please? So good morning. We're going to talk a little bit about immigration rights and justice. When we developed this service, I was not aware that I would be going to the border. It was a Courts and Ports program through Texas Impact, and it was an opportunity that I would like to share more with you at another time in depth. Today I'm just going to tell you 2 or 3 things that I learned on that trip. And if you get a chance, y'all, can you bring up a slide for me? One of the things I learned, we went to Border Patrol. We went to Pro-Bar Immigration Services, which is free immigration aid for folks there. We visited an encampment, and you'll see tents made out of blankets. There were about 250 families living in an area right along the riverside on the Mexico side. We walked over there. It was very safe. Pastor Abram ministers to the people over there by providing water. That was my question. Who's taking care of the porta potties, which the city is doing, and how are they getting water? And that pastor provides, for $84 a day, 15,000 liters in 6 water tanks there. So you do the math, $84 a day times 30 days, what it costs just to provide some basic water for drinking and cooking and light bathing. On the Brownsville side, we had an opportunity to visit a nonprofit agency there that ministers to the people in the encampment by taking over food, water, blankets, diapers, formula, etc., and tells them about when you cross the border, you go through your legal process, we are here to help you, again, with food and water, and provide you with takeout food that you can take on the plane or bus, whatever your needs are. So the day that we visited and we were packaging up some things for kids, I heard that a gentleman needed money to buy his bus ticket. He went through the legal process, has a sponsor in California, and was taking a bus to Dallas and Dallas to California. He had $65 on him, and he needed $15 more to buy the ticket. And thanks to generous donations from people like you who gave me money to take down to the border, we were able to buy Ezekiel his ticket, the rest of the money for his ticket. And he just was so so delighted. He turns to us and said, you know, you're my angels. And I said, well, you know, Ezekiel, I think you're going to need to eat along the way because this is a long journey you're on. How about $30 more to eat? And his eyes just welled up. So it's opportunities like that that Team Brownsville is able to help folks get on their way. So I will gladly share more with that. In a couple of weeks, we'll have a full-blown presentation for you. But today, I want you to meet folks who are boots on the ground, who are living through these experiences. Excuse me. So, Mike, I thought we would start with you, if you would tell us your nonprofit, what it is you do, how people come to you. And what I learned a few minutes ago, these three people are all connected by the power of GTX, no doubt.
Thank you. I'm Mike Sebald, and before I start talking about our organization that I represent, let me just tell you just a very quick thing about me. I'm an immigrant, okay, and when Lou was saying earlier, you know, what's your picture of what an immigrant is? Well, I'm probably about the least likely person up here to look like an immigrant, but immigrants are not just the folks that are coming across the border. They're not just Mexicans. They're not just Hispanic folks. They're not just people escaping Africa or anything of that sort. There's sometimes very ordinary people who live among you. And I'm really proud to, this week, celebrate my 60th anniversary as a citizen of the United States. I immigrated from Germany, which is not, you know, it wasn't as traumatic as what a lot of people go through as a little boy, but my mother remarried to an American. I learned English in this country. I moved to San Antonio. We moved to the west side of San Antonio. I went to a school that was largely Hispanic, and I sat there in 5th grade, not a lick of English, learned English while simply sitting in the classroom, and ultimately, when I was in college, became a citizen. And I think that's why I got into the kind of volunteer work that I do today, because I've always had a really soft spot for immigrants. One thing that's true of every immigrant is that it is a very traumatic thing to be an immigrant, even under the best of circumstances. When you give up your culture, when you give up your land, when you give up your family, and you give up your language, and you give up everything that is familiar to you to come to someplace very different to make a new life, even under the best of circumstances, it's traumatic. In fact, from the work that I do, when people come here as asylees, they often make statements immediately to the people that they meet at the border, which is what initially allows them to come in. They will say certain things about their stories, and a year later, the government really gets angry with them because what they're saying now is very different from what they said at the time that they crossed the border. Well, one of the reasons that many times it's different is because a lot of the folks that are coming into the country suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. They are so traumatized by their journeys and so traumatized by their experiences in their own homeland that they're not able to give honest testimony, that they're not able to assess their story or to tell their story. And so one of the defenses for those inconsistencies many times for me is to let the government know that this person suffered from stress at the time that they entered, and what they told that officer at the day that they entered may not necessarily be the truth, because they were not able to ascertain the truth in their own mind because of the trauma that they had just been through, much like a rape victim or anybody else that is a victim of violence. So I say these things because I think my soft spot for immigrants is because of my own experience. I found it incredibly difficult to give up my language, to give up my family, to give up all the things that were familiar to me, even though ultimately, you know, after 60 years, it has turned out to be the most wonderful and propitious thing that happened to me. What I do is I've worked with immigrant rights, with English language learning for a long time. It's always been just kind of my volunteer work. I was actually an insurance person. I worked for State Farm Insurance. But in my retirement, I wanted to do more to assist immigrants. And so my wife and I founded GTX Connect Immigration Services. And the idea behind it was this, that there were no immigration services being offered here in Georgetown, but we found when we moved here, the closest place you could go to if you needed low-cost immigration assistance was Catholic Charities down in Austin. And that was a 45-minute trip, and many people in our community were not able to make that trip. So we founded GTX Connect Immigration Services. What we are is we are an agency that primarily provides assistance to low-income folks who need help in obtaining the immigration benefits to which they have a right. We're licensed by, believe it or not, the U.S. Department of Justice as a recognized nonprofit agency to provide these services. Our type of service was created a number of years ago by the Department of Human Resources of the United States and the Department of Justice to be kind of a go-between. You know, when you're an immigrant and you need help, you can do one of two things. You can get an attorney, which is extremely expensive, or you can do it yourself. Doing it yourself many times is really not an option because you don't have the language skills or the literacy skills to navigate yourself through the system as an immigrant. And hiring an attorney is not possible because it's just way too expensive, and most of the folks who are immigrants don't have the resources to do that. So we're kind of a halfway point between that. We are able, because we are licensed to do this, to provide these services much like an attorney would, but in many cases we provide the services for free, or we provide them at very low cost. It all depends upon what you are able to pay. It depends upon an income scale. But people who earn up to 150% of the U.S. poverty level, according to the size of their family, are able to get free services from us. And I would say that the vast majority of the services that we provide are free. What do? We help asylees. A person who comes here on asylum has a year to file all the paperwork that's necessary in order to remain here legally. We help people obtain their green cards. We help people obtain citizenship. We help people renew their various different forms of documents. We help them obtain the work permits that they need so that they can work legally and profitably in the United States. So we provide a lot of the basic services that immigrants need. The immigration system is extremely complex. It's very arbitrary. It's all rules based. If you want to be a citizen, that's kind of an okay thing to do, but it's a 23-page application with 20 pages of instructions on how to do it. So to become much of what the U.S. government provides to immigrants costs money. So a work permit for 5 years costs $540. It costs $725 to become a citizen. It costs $1,250 to apply for a green card. So these are expenses that immigrants need to be able to bear in order to obtain those things. There are waivers available, and one of the things that our agency is able to do is to secure those waivers for fees when people are eligible for them. Quite frankly, we try to promote ourselves as much as we're able to. We really can't advertise. Things like this is what makes us visible. But what we find media has been really obvious, especially in the last year. We've been at this since 2021. Is that word of mouth is absolutely essential. We are now, I've got an appointment today, and we are now getting the vast majority of our folks from people who have gotten services in the past. Word gets around in the community that this service is available within the community, and it really has helped.
Thank you very much, Mike. So I just discovered you two, and you two, work together on some things. So would you talk about how you know Vanessa, and talk about bridges? Let's, with hope and resiliency, the bridges to growth. So how do you know Vanessa, and then you can pass this to Vanessa.
If you haven't been by yet, come by and take a look sometime at the Carver Center for Families. The Carver Center for Families is the old Carver Elementary School that closed a number of years ago. And a number of nonprofits, the Georgetown Health Foundation has created this area, and a number of nonprofits are in there. I am in there providing immigration services. We have counseling services available, but we also have Bridges to Growth. She's in the office right next to me, and Bridges to Growth offers ESL classes and offers services for families, and a lot of times those families also happen to have, by coincidentally, immigration needs. And so we work together, and Irma and Vanessa both assist me, and I speak this sort of rudimentary conversational Spanish, which gets me in the door, but once it's got me in the door, it's got me trapped. So I need, I need really good translation services, and Vanessa and Irma both provide that. But anyway, that's how we know each other.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Vanessa Vidori. I work alongside with Mike to provide these services, and I kind of wear many hats. I'm at Bridges to Growth as a contractor to provide support services for families in terms of parent education and children's activities. Yes, a lot of our families are Spanish-speaking only. A lot of them are just within the community needing assistance or needing additional supports, additional resources for themselves, for their children in terms of education activities. And all of our activities are really developmentally appropriate. They're educational. They're with the purpose in mind for brain development, for healthy brain development. And the way that I see this, for us, I say us, collectively, it's easy to access such information online. What are the milestones for a 3-year-old? What is a 2-year-old? What do I do with my 2-year-old when he's throwing a tantrum? Culturally speaking, there's a divide. There's a huge gap, not just in the language barrier portion of it, but also an immigrant. We saw the pictures. How do they even navigate the internet to find these resources? How do we even learn this? Not only that, my other hat that I wear is with foster care. I've worked in foster care for about 12, 15 years, many years. One thing I will tell you, the children that become adoptable a lot sooner are colored children. Children who have the least likelihood to be reunited with their parents in the foster care system are ethnic minorities, because many times, again, there's that lack of resources, there's that lack of understanding, and there's that cultural gap. Sure, you can spank your child, but guess what? Somebody who doesn't understand those limitations and what that translates to in our system, that child is removed immediately and less likely to be reunited for many reasons, whether the parents didn't have the resources, the know-hows of accessing the needs, the things that would meet those needs to get their children back, or just they mostly that's the reason. The other reason, again, it's that cultural gap, that cultural understanding.
Do I understand that you're an immigrant?
Yes, yeah, sure. I am an immigrant. I'm an immigrant both ways, and that's a long story, but I'll try to condense it. I am an immigrant. I'm a citizen by a tragedy. My grandfather passed away. My mom came back to the United States for my grandfather's services. My uncle said, "You're not going." She had recently separated from my father. So they said, "You're not going. You're going back to Mexico with a newborn, and you have no husband. You're staying here." Perfect. We stayed here for my first 3 years of life, 4 years. Then somebody else in our family passed away in Mexico, and so there we go back to Mexico. So I immigrated back to Mexico. So citizen, immigrated to Mexico, lived there until I was 10, immigrated back to California. And yet, I'm Native.
You're complex.
That's a long story short, yet I have a lot of Native American in me. So the challenges with that, and personally, and now that I work with families who are going through similar situations and seeing in foster care families, it's not the first generation it's not the immigrants, because we hear a lot in the media, they murder and the drunk drivers and data and all this negativity. Yes, there's a lot of that. However, it's not your first term generations. These people are laying low right, Mike? They don't want to get in trouble. They're not trying to break laws. They left. You have to think how miserable life had to be in order to leave their lives behind, to come into a society that's not necessarily welcoming. So not only are they facing personal challenges, cultural challenges, familial challenges, personally, they're also facing them and trying to overcome and trying to assimilate into a society that's not very welcoming a lot of times. That's not very supportive.
That's a great segue to what Irma is dealing with. So Irma, tell us a little bit what you're doing in the schools. And you had shared with me about a student, you have to use her real name, the obstacles that they face.
Well, I do work at the school, and I work with 14 kids that I follow through the day. And I go to one class every day of the week. Sometimes I see the child twice, maybe 3 times during the week. Sometimes I only see them 1 time. So it gets kind of hard when they start really getting into their lives and trusting you and telling you that, you know, in their country. I had this week where one of my students was talking about, oh, we're going back to Cuba for a couple days. We're going to go visit my home. And I said, oh, too bad I can't come with you. She said, no, you don't want to go. And I said, why? She says, you can't find food. You can't find good people. There is not a lot of good people there. And I thought, wow, you're 13 and you're talking how you don't have anything. I also have another kid that I've kind of grown really attached to, which I'm not supposed to do, but he's kind of hard not to love. He tells me that he hates me every day. He tells me that he can't stand me and that he wished that I would just fall dead. Sometimes he talks really ugly to me. He just turns around and says, I hate you. I really hate you. And I look at him, I was like, why do you talk to me like that? Why do you hate me so much? And he looks at me and is like, I don't really hate you. And I said, why do you say those ugly things to me? Because these people make me mad. They want me to do all their stuff, and nobody listens to me. And then, you know, and then they call home, and then I get in trouble, and then I get spanked. And I looked at him, and I said, because of the things that you do at school? And he says, yeah. And I said, yeah, but every day is that way for you. Every day. And he says, yes, every day. Every day you tell me to do this. Every day I don't see you do anything. Only explain what's on the board. Only explain to me. And I looked at him and I said, I know, and I get tired of it. Look, you know, but I just love him. He reminds me of my father. Like with every word that he tells me, there's like 4 or 5 bad words that go in there. So I can't really explain the way he talks because it's so offensive.
Irma, would you mention to the audience, they're not always Spanish speakers. For instance, if they're
Yes.
coming from Central America, they're speaking a dialect maybe mine. And what's
They
the
do.
complication of that?
When they come from Honduras, they have their own native tongue. So it's hard for them to speak to you because they don't always know Spanish. They speak a different dialect. And actually, in a lot of the countries where the kids come from, all of them are dialects. So they come into this country and they have to learn another language, which is Spanish, and they also are learning English, all at the same time, which people don't stop to think, oh, they're not getting good grades. They're not keeping up with everybody else. They're not, you know, and it makes me mad because if they were sitting there and they were having to go through it, would you have more sympathy? Would you have a little bit more? I hear teachers say some crazy things sometimes. And it just doesn't feel good that they have to listen to it. Whether they understand it or not, you're still speaking it. And they're here probably going to do great things in this area. Maybe not, who knows, you know, but a little encouragement would go a long way with them. I know.
Can you speak to how your one student that made a difference when she got on a sports team, and we'll end with that?
Oh, she's one of my favorite students. She's so amazing. She came from Mexico, and she has nothing but 90s. She's like a 100 child. She's here in America, and she's struggling to make it through. She got an 80. She thought she was having a breakdown where she's not doing good enough. And so I kind of like wheeled her into playing basketball. And I told her, hey, you know, as long as you get good grades and you're passing, I'll buy your shoes. And she's like, are you serious? And I said, yes. And she goes, okay. So she tried out for the team, and she made it. So now we're going to basketball games every Monday. But it's nice to, I met her parents this last Monday, and they're so amazing. They came over and they thanked us for the shoes and said, but that's our responsibility. You shouldn't have to be doing that. And I said, you know, a lot of the other teachers have talked to this one child. And I say that if she finishes school here and she goes back to Mexico, she should be the president. She is so smart, and she talks about the points about being there, what the differences are between coming to school here and school there. And she is so smart. My goodness, she's figured out how to type, to translate, and do her work at the same time without having to really spend a lot of time on the translator. She's been picking up her Spanish really quickly. I really love her and enjoy her.
Irma also related how difficult it is for the students when they're trying to learn two languages and they're not allowed to use a translator mechanism, and they're taking tests. And so what are they going to do? They're going to fail. But then the school sometimes passes them through, but they're getting passed on to grades, and that's just a setup for failure. So we have some issues, we have some obstacles, but what we heard today was about resilience and hope. And that's what you all are doing and providing, and that's what we all will try to do for you as well. So thank you, everybody, for your attention. Remember, you're welcome. Christmas pageant next week. GTX, we've got a film event, right? And there is a candlelight vigil at Southwestern's Chapel on Thursday night, if that's of any interest to you. So go have some coffee, cookies, whatever we got, enjoy, and thank you all for attending today. Thank you, Vanessa, for coming out today. Thank you. You did great.
That's